So I guess we'll get started. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Johnny Orr. I am the Assistant Director for the Distance Learning Institute here at the University of Miami. So, just want to get a couple things out of the way first. This is actually my fourth training today, and so I'm going to answer a couple of questions that I know have come up to just get everybody at ease. So first things first. No, we do not own your content. For these courses that you are putting, this is pretty much an emergency situation. If you have to load content to the course, it's yours. We at DLI, who would be the ones that would probably want to access that, we don't want it. It's yours. So load as you will. So with that out of the way, we'll get into Blackboard. The purpose today is basically to give you an idea of how to get something set up and keep going. This is not how to build the perfect online course. This is really just so that you can keep in communication with your students while we go through this situation and come back online later. So it's not meant to teach you how to be a Blackboard expert, just get you going. With that said, there are three things we're going to talk about today. We'll be talking about how to send announcements / emails through the Blackboard interface, how to set up a discussion board, and how to deal with Collaborate Ultra, and I'll explain that in a little bit. So first things first, you can get to the Blackboard courses by going to courses.miami.edu, or if you're on our home page, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there is a link for Blackboard. Yes? Okay, we'll have to check those out. Because if you got to this screen and went in with your...
It says if you that, it doesn't go to that page, it just says login error, and we're required to sign on, but it doesn't give us a chance to sign on.
Yeah, there may be a link issue. Did you type courses.miami.edu?
Not with the homepage, but it's at the courses.miami.edu. Did you sign on before? To what? Yes, I used Blackboard. Yeah, was it happened yesterday?
But once you do have your single sign-on set up, you should come to the front, this first screen. Now, for our purposes today, like I said, I'm going to kind of be going through it for you, but if you don't have a course or have a course shell, don't worry about it. Again, we're going to be going through it, and we're going to be providing some information at the end of the day, once I have a chance to go back to the office, so that we can recap a few of these things. So, first things first, once you finally click into a course, no problem. So, once you go into your course, you should, the first thing I want you to look for is to make sure that you're in edit mode. Up in the upper right-hand corner, you want to make sure this is clicked on. If it's off, there's not a lot of things you can do that are already there. So you want to make sure that your edit mode is on. With that done, you'll notice that this first location here, announcements, this is basically where your students are going to show up. And so this is the first thing we'll talk about. Rather than sending emails, one of the things that you can do is to send announcements. And I'll show you the reason why. You'll notice that I have an announcement here. So in order to create an announcement, you click Create Announcement. Yes, sir.
All of the courses that I'm teaching say courses unavailable to students.
Yes. That means that if that particular course there, if you release the course, if you make it available, that means every student at that moment can see whatever's in that course. Case in point, if you're working on a course for next semester, you probably don't want to release it right now. So. That would be handled through IT, but they can merge the courses where you would have one place to deal with them. As long as they're relatively the same, yes. And so with that, you give it some sort of title. This is mandatory. And here is where you can paste information. Paste whatever it is, whatever the information for that announcement for the class would go. This is where you would type it in. I do want to make one point. I'm going to copy this. You'll notice here that I actually pasted a link in that messaging center. Until we have everything completed with Zoom, if you want to share a Zoom link, this is how you do it. You would have to get your Zoom collaboration link, the meeting link, and copy it here. Also with information on how what the students should be expecting, when they should access, and everything else. Yes? When it's time, you click that lock. But once you click that lock, it's available to everybody at that moment. So be careful if you didn't want your course to be released, because now it just got released. Right, but if you right now, my course is basically just sitting here. Nobody's in it. I don't have anyone in it. It's a sandbox. But if your course is one that you're working in, yeah, students will be sitting there watching your course evolve while you're doing it. So once you release it, they have access to it. But I wanted to show you how that you can copy and paste the link. You'll copy and paste your Zoom links or any other links to anything else here that you want to share with the students. Was there a question?
Yes, sorry, I just had to do it again because I'm coordinating essentially, for us, several of the studio classes particularly have actually separate sections. Now, I see them here, so I guess I have to check. The problem for me is I would like to follow this directly, but if I start, I don't know which one is my group. Because, I have like ARC 204, 21, 22, 23, 25. So I probably have to check with my administration in order to know which section corresponds to my student.
Correct. And yes, again, as I said, we're just kind of going over how this would be done. But once you have that information, you can go right into your course and start using it. What becomes important here is email announcement. Once you check this box, not only do you post the announcement on the Blackboard page, but you also send an email to every student in the class. The advantage of this is that rather than just sending an email, and I'll just post this, we'll press submit here. So here's my link, here's my announcement, but when a student logs in, they will also see the announcement here. So you won't have that issue of, well, I didn't get your email. If they log into Blackboard, they'll see the same announcement that went through their email. Yes, sir.
I'm getting comments from people who are following this at home, is that they're not hearing the question. So we have to use the mic for questions.
Okay. So, but there's anything else on the announcements? Yes. Hold on. Yep.
But maybe it's best if actually Johnny repeats the question.
Okay.
Automatically, the email are automatically part of the system, correct?
Correct. This
I
is
don't
the-
have to enter any email addresses.
If you do this, no, you do not.
Otherwise, yeah, because I have another system. That's okay.
Right.
Thanks.
So if your students have, since your students will have their emails registered in the system, if you go ahead and click that send as an email, they'll get the email, but the announcement that you posted is also sitting here when they log in. So, any other questions? Okay. So now I'm going to go over a discussion board. And this is basically asynchronous. This is not synchronous communication, but this would be used if you wanted to set up a question or set up a topic that you wanted the students to discuss. There's two parts. There's the forum, and then there's the thread. In order to have a discussion board, you first have to create a forum by clicking the Create Forum button. Now, I did jump ahead a little bit. I'm going to take this time to just step back for a moment. You'll notice that when we were in edit mode, there's this little plus sign up here in the upper left-hand corner. If you happen to have a course and you're like, well, I don't see a discussion board, or I don't see Collaborate Ultra or something like that, this is where you would add that feature. The way you would do that is you would highlight over the plus button, and the things you're looking for are under Tool Link. You now name the tool, whatever it is you want to call it, discussion board, Collaborate, Ultra. And then as far as type goes, you would use this selection and choose the type. In this case, there's Collaborate Ultra. There's discussion board. And let's see. Now this just got added, was the Zoom LTI. But there'll be other future trainings on that. But this is where you can add that link to your menu. So since I had this as Ultra, I'll call that. If you do not want the students to have immediate access to it, you can unselect available to users. But it's usually that's usually available to users. That's usually unselected by default. If you check it, now I get a menu item, and once I click on this, this will open up the course's Collaborate Ultra instance. These items that have the small box with the line through it, those are the ones that have been hidden from the students. So this is what it looks like when a student can't access that. So now, back to the discussion board. Once you're creating your forum, you also give it a title, a topic, whatever it is you want. You use use this area to actually type in the information you want to give the students about that topic, whether it's the question you want to ask, the scenario you're setting up. Then you have several options after that. If you want to make this available to the students, you can. Maybe you want to hold this back for a little bit because you're still thinking about it. You can say it's not available. Likewise, you can have date restrictions where you only have this display between particular dates. One of the major features here is that when you're viewing your threads and replies, you can either have the standard view, which basically opens up the information as soon as they walk in or navigate to the discussion board, or you can choose that the participants must create a thread in order to view other threads. This means that when they go into the discussion board, if they have not actually posted, they won't see anything. The advantage of that is that if you have something where you want unique responses and want to engage that, you can click this, and that means that the students can't go and do that. Now, I didn't type anything here, and they're like, you probably want to give instructions. So Blackboard's keeping me saying, if you're going to say that this is the view they're going to have, you're going to probably want to give them instructions, because when they click on it, they won't see anything in the other room. Even posts that you make, they won't see anything until that's done. Yes?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes. Well, once you go up to the description again, can I send any voice messages?
If you
and also
had,
live drawing or sketching?
If you had, now, as far as actually other items to put in here, they're mainly, this is pretty much like a small web page. You can put different links in. If you had something going out to like a video, you could embed a video here. There's not, however, there are still some limitations with that. So again, if you had this already saved to like I have a video for this, you could put that video link here. You could do those things. As far as having like a live anything going on, that would probably be a tool that would have to be integrated into this. So if you had the code to embed this in here, you could do that, but that would be way beyond the scope. But could it be done? It would just be a question of what tools are available and what we can put in.
Architecture classes.
Yes. So I will admit that I don't know the breadth of the tools that you have, but once we kind of get settled in, I can probably go through and see what we can and can't do and compile that for you. But as we continue, you also have the option of giving this as a grade. So if you're worried about students not potentially going in and doing this, you can actually make it a graded assignment. Yes? Well, no, go ahead and ask. I'll repeat it.
I think students are not following this discussion, but I just thought, this comment might be useful because, you might continue for quite some time, and I think that's great to explain Blackboard. But for, the question that we just had, from a professor who is in my team, it seems like, in order to discuss with students about their studio work and their designs, a tool like Zoom might be maybe more appropriate, or... Yeah, okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to say this maybe now, so because there could be a misunderstanding otherwise.
As far as the other options here, my recommendation, especially for the situation we're in now, is to leave those be. So again, what we do, this is mainly if you want to have an asynchronous set of communications going on with your students. But to the point made, once you submit and create that, now you have your forum, And by clicking on the forum, this is where your students would actually create the threads that would ultimately populate this. And all they have to do is create their thread. Similar interface, none of the options. They also have the ability to attach a file. I have not seen, I do not have the exact number, but I would probably say, just because of how some things are limited, if you start getting into gigabytes for a size of file, don't do that. Yeah, but if you're staying in the megs, you should be fine. But when you start getting past 500, start worrying.
It's more a question of speed than quantity.
Yes.
Upload and download to Blackboard is very slow, so keep the file small.
But this is the interface that you and the students would see. They still have to give a subject. They would enter in the information that they have to. If they'd like to attach a file, they could. Where I've seen this used in the online section of things, where people would say, okay, you've turned in an assignment and now we want you to share that with the class. So post your assignment here, or whatever the document was. And then when they're done, they have the option of either submitting it or saving it as a draft and coming back to it. Once they press submit, it's actually submitted, and if there's a gradable option, it's ready to grade. Yes, sir.
Quick question, what does it mean to allow subscriptions?
This is basically when a update happens to the post or happens to that forum, students can subscribe and get an email alert saying that, oh, somebody posted there. The question was, what about subscriptions? And so those two areas are, again, this is just so that you can keep going. So now you can send messages and post information on the Blackboard interface for the students while we're going through this situation. And if you want to have a discussion that you're not necessarily monitoring directly, you can. So now to the actual synchronous portion of it. So as I mentioned before, we have a tool built into Blackboard called Collaborate Ultra. It basically does what Zoom does. The difference is, and there are some, in order to access this, you have to go and log into Blackboard. But you're given a course room, which, as you know up here has the name, and these are the options that come up. First things first, the first time you log onto your computer and you go into Collaborate Ultra, you're going to get a lot of these help icons. You just have to close them here, but they allow you to learn more and take tutorials on things. But for our purposes, we'll just keep going. Anonymous dial-in, this is just like Zoom. You can copy this information and give it to students who want to actually dial in or don't have access to a computer and they need to do this via phone. They want to call in, they can. Maybe they don't have a microphone on whatever device they're using. Then you can actually provide that information. They can call in and they can still hear and interact with the training. You also have guest access. This is like the links that you send in Zoom. If you copy this, this is allowing anyone who has that link, whether they are inside of the university or not, anyone who has that link will be able to join this group as a participant because I've set them as participants. I could set them as presenters if I wanted everyone there to be able to share their own screens, or I could give this to moderators if I were, say, meeting with fellow instructors, and we were all going to be sharing the screen and moving things around. Maybe there's 4 of us. I may send the link to the moderators and then make another link to send to the participants. And each time you change this, this link will change. So then you can copy this and send that as an email. Again, this is basically your one button push as far as having a meeting. If you want to have something that's with a little more control, you can actually create a session. And I'll go over that in a minute, but let me finish up here. In this session setting, you're saying that anybody who joins, their default role is a participant, which basically means that unless you make them a moderator, everybody who joins is going to be a participant. They can listen and they can watch. You also have the option of allowing recording downloads. This is where, when you've recorded your lecture, your presentation, if you want them to be able to go back and download the recording, you click this button. If not, they can go into the class and watch it. They just won't have the ability to download an MP4 version of it. You also have the option of allowing people to share their audio, share their video. Can they post chat messages? And are they allowed to draw on the whiteboard and files? If you give them these options, the students will be able to manipulate anything that you share with them. You as the moderator will always have these options. Do you want to allow the attendees to join by telephone? Keep that checked. Even if no one uses it, you do have it so that you don't have anyone saying, well, I couldn't join, I couldn't get in. Let them give them that information. Again, all of these are very similar to what Zoom has to offer. You can even control whether or not they can privately chat to each other. They're defaulted to off, but you have that option. Perhaps you want them to talk amongst themselves. And when it's time, you can actually we will be joining this room. But I do want to show you one of the other differences with creating a session. So when you create a session, you have to give it a name. Then you have the ability here to actually give a start and stop date. I was asked in another training whether or not, well, what happens if I go over the hour? As the moderator, you can extend it, but rule of thumb, give yourself another 30 minutes. When you end the session's over. So even if I said it's going to be an hour, I might set it for an hour and 30. But when my session's done and I close the session, I'm closing it after an hour. You can also make an open-ended session, which means that it's going to start on a particular time, but then there is no close. You'll close it whenever you're ready. And you can repeat sessions. So if you do have standing office hours, you can go ahead and just set them up here if you'd like, and then just go in as needed. Early entry, just what it is. If you want somebody to be able to log in up to an hour early to the meeting, you can. The meeting starts when you are ready for it to start. So if you show up early, you can do that as well. You can just start having your conversations. Everybody's just able to log in early. But you also can have there's no early entry. Under session settings, again, just like before, you get to say what it is you want to allow the students to be able to do. Finally, attendance reporting. This is one of the differences between Zoom and Ultra. Again, we're just in the process of implementing the Zoom LTI. Features may have changed, but initially there wasn't really a connection between Zoom and the gradebook. So if you want to know who logged in, did my entire class log in, you can share the attendance information with the LMS under Ultra. Yes?
When does the, or where does the attendance get documented in Blackboard? Or where does the information from the attendance get documented in Blackboard?
Under the, I believe it's under the Grade Center. You'll actually have a section that comes up that says, here's the individuals that were here. They treat it like a participation grade.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not necessarily a graded thing, but it does say, these are the people that showed up.
Does it mean that you have to actually set up the rubric to accept it, or does it automatically make that rubric happen?
This is looking strictly at attendance, but if you look on the screen here, if you do this, this is your rubric. You're basically saying, are they late if they showed up? Are they absent if they show up so many minutes? And then how much time do they actually have to be active in the session? So as it's listed right here by default, they're late if they show up 5 minutes late. They are absent if they show up 20 minutes late. And they have to at least be sitting there for 50 minutes. Now again, we are online. They have to be active enough to say that they're still there. If they disconnect or whatnot, it's still calculating the time that they were functionally in the course. But this is one of those features that we have here that right now I have not seen yet in Zoom, but we're implementing the new LTI. That may change. Yes, sir.
When the class session ends, are the attendees automatically logged in, or we have to save them somewhere, or does it save them automatically?
When the session ends?
Yes, so like next time we know who was in that particular session versus the next one, will it log the attendees automatically?
Not unless you click this.
Okay,
So basically, the way this works, again, somewhat like Zoom as well, it's pretty much just the collaboration tool. This is just allowing you to say, well, I told you this was mandatory, and so now I'll keep the record.
But
If
once it's clicked, they're automatically saved, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Once you create your session, since I have one here, I'll just show this. After you create the session, you'll get your PIN for anyone who wants to dial in. You'll also get the guest link access. For students who are coming into the course, once they navigate over to the Collaborate section, they'll see the session and they can log in. Guest link is for individuals who aren't students. So if you do have someone else, a guest speaker, who you want them to participate, they're gonna probably be sharing their screen from wherever they are, you can send them the guest link without them necessarily having to log into Blackboard. So this link keeps them from having to go into Blackboard. Yes?
Hello. Is it possible to take the data from the event details and put it into a spreadsheet? Say a faculty wants to go back in and say, so-and-so was in class for an average of X amount of time. Can you go in and see that, and can you extract that? Sorry, I'm the librarian, so I'm gonna talk data.
I believe so. I would say for right now, that'd probably be out of the scope of what we're gonna do today. But it's pretty much everything that goes in this, there's a possibility to get it out. Yes, sir.
In the case where you have multiple sessions, as some of our faculty have, and you want to have a meeting with the instructors or your faculty, can you do that within this, since this is course-based, or do you have to go out to Zoom? And
So here's how you would do that. One of you pick whose class we're going in. that person goes to the course room and share that guest link. And then that will be, you'll just say, join me here. On your side, which is what we're going to next anyway, we're going to join the classroom. But for them, they would click in and join that. Now, since this is the first time that I'm using this, it's asking me, do I want to use the mic? It'll ask me to test the mic. And I can say, yes, yes, it's working, or I need help. It'll ask me, do I want to share video? If you have a web camera installed on your system, it'll be here. If not, it'll recognize it and it'll let you skip the test. If you do have a webcam and it's asking you to skip the test, you may have to check with your configuration. So now, there's an opportunity when you first get in to start a tutorial to kind of walk you through some of the features. We'll do that later. And you can also find all that information under Tell Me About Collaborate on this menu. So now we are in the Collaborate session, where at the very bottom here, you have where you're sharing your audio, sharing your video, and especially for the students, where they have the option to raise their hand. And we're going to go over a couple of those things. Down here, lower corner, this is the actual Collaborate panel where you kind of maneuver things. It starts off in the chat box. This is basically the chat between everyone and the moderators, because right now the only person logged in is myself. So you can actually do chat and you can have people talking. If you set this up to allow the students to have private chat, then you would actually see as the moderator what they're saying. You could actually go and look at their private chats if you have that connected. On the second tab are your attendees. Right now, I'm the only person in there, so I'm now joining on myself. I get an indication that I've joined, and that's this phone right here. Hard to see, but same interface is here. I have the ability to turn my mic or my phone audio on and off. If I have a camera, I can turn that on and off. And if I need to raise my hand, I can push the button and I can get somebody's attention as the student. This is what that indication looks like, and you as the person who's using it can actually address that individual. Yes?
How do you share your desktop?
We're getting there. Actually, that's the next tab. And you'll see they're letting me know that somebody actually had a question. So if I didn't have the panel open, I can look in the lower corner and see somebody had a question. And then I can go and check out who had that question. How do you share? Here are the primary content items that Blackboard allows. First thing is the whiteboard. And now that I'm sharing that, again, a little hard to see, but there's the whiteboard on my phone. So anyone who's on the computer, phone, or however they're looking, they're seeing whatever I'm sharing. Again, just like Zoom. This, however, is one of the points where Zoom, I think, does beat out Ultra, in that the whiteboard is very rudimentary. There's not really much you're going to do with it. The color palettes and things are just, they're really not there. You can draw, but I'm drawing with a pen. I'm drawing with my mouse. Unless I have something set up where I have a stylus and I'm drawing on it, it's about as good as it's getting. I can do text. The text will show up After I press enter, I can change the colors, but where I think it really lacks is that there's not really an erase. There's a clear. So if I push this button, bye-bye. Not good. Next option, we can share applications or screens. You have a few choices. If you have dual monitors, you'll see multiple monitors on this section where it's your entire screen. You can share different screens if you have monitors connected. Otherwise, it's going to share the screen in front of you. If you share the main screen and you only have one, Blackboard does this thing that is insane, but you basically see this cascading array of screens when you do that until you put something else up in front of it. Next option, application windows. If you have other applications open, such as PowerPoint, Word, another document, software program running, as long as it's open in its own window, you can share just the window, and the students will see whatever you do in that window. So yes, if you do have CAD running, you can share what you're doing on the screen. Finally, you have Chrome tabs. This only works in Chrome. Haven't seen it work in Firefox or anything else. But you are now able to share tabs opened in the Chrome browser. So if you had something already set up, a website you're going to discuss, something you're going to go and share with the students, you can have that already open, and then here you can just share that browser, that particular tab from the browser. Finally, you'll notice at the bottom you have an option of sharing the audio. Finally, you can share files. 3 primary files: images, PowerPoint, or PDF. Disadvantage of this: PowerPoints that have transitions, videos, and whatnot become flat objects when you do it through this. So if you have actual animations and things that you want the students to see, my suggestion would be do application or entire screen. But if you put it here, you kind of get the whiteboard effect, but it's over an image of the actual PowerPoint slide. So you can kind of write on it and do what you want with the limited tools they have there. But if you have any kind of fly-ins, any kind of animations, any kind of video, that won't play. Links won't work. It's basically an image. So if you do have those things, entire screen or PowerPoint. One other note that I found with PowerPoint, don't put it in presentation mode. Share PowerPoint and then run a standard presentation if that's what you're going to do. Questions so far?
Basically, what you just said was to do an application window and use present mode for PowerPoint.
Yes, just the standard. Yep. So once again, use the application window, do F5. Just regular we're just presenting. Don't do the whole 2-screen thing going, don't do that. Just do a regular presentation. In fact, unless you do have a lot of stuff in it, I've seen faculty who have just left it in PowerPoint just because the students will see it. So you can have them do that. Once you do select that, you do have to click on Share Now. But this does allow you to queue up multiple documents. So if you had 2 or 3 different documents, 2 or 3 different PowerPoints or PDFs that you wanted to do, you could load them all and then select that document and press Share Now. And then when you're done, you would stop sharing. The stop sharing button would show up for those, and then you could share something else. They also have polling and timers. Again, not a lot of people use these tools, and they're relatively new for the interface, but they are available. For our purposes today, really won't be going into those. Breakout groups, though, I have been asked about, and the way that works is that you actually get to make groups that the students, the participants can go into, and they can have their own little miniature discussions while, instead of just one big discussion with one big group. So you can drag participants to a particular group. The default is 2 groups, but you can add more. And then once you start the breakout session, those individuals will go into same interface, except the only people that will be there are the individuals you set up for the groups. You as the moderator, just by clicking on the group title, can go into any group you want and see how they're doing and what they're saying and how that's going. Questions? Finally, we have the settings for this particular session. Those pop-ups that you saw coming up when I had the raising of the hand and everything, I can determine whether or not I want those to happen. And again, I can say, what do I want? Do I only want to show the moderator, or do I want them to be able to see each other? And do I want to curtail any audio or video on their part? Now, save the best for last. This hamburger menu, as it is called, on the left-hand side, if you click that, right at the top, start recording. So, if you'd like to record your lecture, once you get yourself set up, once you've loaded up your files, if you're going to share files, once you've done it, once you made sure your audio and your video are okay, start recording. When you're finished, you can stop the recording, and then you can also say, you can just say, okay, we're done, or you can just leave the session when you're done. Once you leave the session, you basically kick out everybody else who's still there. You'll also notice that I've allowed my phone to go to sleep. Notice what it says. I'm gone. I'm inactive. So if a student doesn't stay there, they'll go inactive. Or if they lose a connection. Any questions? Once you leave your session, you'll get this wonderful little smiley face thing. I typically skip it. And you're done. If you did record your session, again, here's our hamburger menu on the main page. And I can go to recordings, and oh look, there's a recording I did earlier. If I gave the students the ability to download, they'll actually see the download button. If not, they won't, but they will be able to watch it. Disclaimer, it can take, depending on the size, up to 48 hours to show up. This one I did this morning, so again, up to. If you haven't seen your video that you've recorded after 2 days, contact Blackboard Help and let them know, because the video is most likely there, but there may have been something that happened that caused it to not load to your system. Once this is here, you actually see that, if you see this here where it says copy link, some faculty I know like doing this. If you copy the link here, you can copy, go to your announcements, and make an announcement saying, for those of you who weren't able to join us, there's your link to the recording. You could also do that in Zoom if you had that set up. So once you recorded, copy the link, share it with everybody, let them know. Students, on the other hand, could just go with Ultra. If they go back here, again, they see the similar interface, they could go here and just go to the recording to go watch it if you did not provide the link.
Is the recording audio and video or audio only?
Audio and video. Really, the only thing you're toggling here is whether or not the student can download it or not. Personally, it doesn't matter. Because if a student really wanted your stuff, they can record it after you watched it. They can record it while you're doing it, and there's nothing you can do about it. So they can download it if they want to.
It also does screen capture at the same time?
Anything that you put, anything that was going on in that box, that's what's been recorded. So again, if you were sharing software and sharing how that was going, that's being recorded. If you had it set to share audio, anything you did is being recorded. But you'll also notice that here, there's a way to delete it as well. Just don't, because there's not really a way to come get it back if you decide to delete it. Recommendation, download it yourself. At least you will have it. You can always upload it back to YouTube or whatever you want to do with it. And then you can delete it. Questions? For our purposes, for this situation that we're in, those are the things you really need to know. We didn't get deep into assignments or things like that because there's a whole laundry list of things that could happen with those. But as far as keeping up the communication with your students, these are the viable options you have. Keeping in mind, we are not going online. We're not turning architecture into an online school. This is just to help out the people that you're working with.
There may be questions that have been posted by viewers online.
Okay, let's go over.
Okay, so we have, I still do not see where we can save a recording or session. Please ask the moderator.
So once you click here, you usually start off in the sessions area. This is inside of Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. You would click on the menu and go to your recordings. This is where your recordings will list after you've actually recorded them. Again, keep in mind that downtime. It's not instantaneous. Though it could be, and I won't put that out there, but I've seen it take, if you've been talking at a marathon's rate, you might have a very large video. So, especially with audio. So if you had a 2-hour lecture, that's probably not going to show up 5 minutes after you're done. So give it some time, but when it shows up, right over here in the corner where it says recording options, this is where you as the moderator, since it's yours, you can download that and then save it to your system. Yes, sir?
Yeah, I think the question was when you hit recording start, if you can just hit leave system or you gotta hit record save. I think nobody saw the save, so just leave system will save it automatically, correct?
Yes, if you were recording and you stopped. In fact, since I know we have folks watching, let's do it. My session is now being recorded. Now it's stopped. So I'll wait for a moment. My session is now being recorded. As you notice, I don't have any recordings. It may take a while. But what should happen is I should have two, unless there was a time threshold, I should have two. I don't want to have to sit there for too long. Again, now that you all have an idea of this, by all means, test it out. Go to your sections and go play with it. Right now, you're not going to kill anything. Next question.
Please explain again how to access Collaborate Ultra and discussion board.
Okay. If you do not have them on your menu, you're now going to go up, make sure you're in edit mode. You're going to come here to the small circle with a plus sign, and you're going to go to tool link. You're going to give it a name of some sort. And then you're going to choose which tool you're going to use. For our purposes today, we're doing Collaborate Ultra and discussion board. So you would choose which one you're doing. Once you've done that, and you've added the tool, decided whether you're going to make it available to the users. For those two, I would. And then you would check submit. When those tools show up, then you have access. Here's your discussion board where you can create your forum. And here's your Collaborate Ultra. Next question? Oh, must mean I did a good job. Are there any questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
We usually meet with students one by one for at least some of the time of the studio. Oh, sorry. So when we're in studio, we usually meet with students one-on-one at their desk where we have an individual conversation, or it could be in teams. So I'm wondering how this could work for that, how the Collaborate Ultra, would you set up different sessions for each group of students or for each student?
You could set up different sessions.
Or do you have everybody attend, but you only people can come in and out as they're...
That's where, if you have everybody attend, just so an easy way to do it would have been in that that one tool that I was showing. In fact, I'll go back to it. So the breakout group, that's one way to do that, where you just have your session where everybody's there and then put your teams, once they've logged in, drag your teams to different groups. One thing I didn't get into was if you go to the plus sign here, you can make new groups. So let's say you have 5 teams, make 5 groups, move the students where they need to go, and then start your breakout session at the bottom, and then they'll have their own little place. You as the moderator go and visit all the groups, and then you can have that conversation. So once you've got it, once everything's been started, this is the moderator screen, and you can click on here where you join the individual groups. So in that situation, you basically plan on this happening. Or, again, you have that ability. You could stagger things. You could say, okay, team 1, you're meeting on this day at this time. Have a session with just team 1 in it. You could still use the breakout groups in case you have other students that decide to join the session. You can say, you know what, make it a breakout group. You guys sit here. I'm going to talk to team 1. With the students, they'll see the main room and they'll see their group. Yes, sir.
How do you set it up so the students can share their screens and show you what they're working on?
Once the question was, how do you set it up where the students can share their screens? That's when you have the students set up as presenters. Can we go back and make that functional? I would have to log back in. But yes, we can do it. In the breakout. So when I had myself logged in, I can make a student a presenter. Just bear with me a moment. Okay. So I can make this person one of the presenters in the group. Now you're a presenter. And if I make the entire group presenters, that means that they can share they can share their screen, one at a time, of course, but they can share their screens. So now you can have those breakout groups and you can do this. If you're working with multiple instructors, you can say, okay, there's 3 of us, there's 3 groups. You go into group A, I'll go into group B, you'll go into group C, and everybody has their own experience at the exact same time. Now, recording typically happens on the main group.
So as we often draw for the students, and that's a form of communication, how could one go about affecting that? I mean, because the mouse-operated whiteboard is just not going to do it.
Now, that would be a question of how are you, I'll say on the professional standpoint, as an instructional designer, I would have to see what you do to tell you, say, okay, this would be the best way to do that. But this is also one of the reasons why I wanted to focus on the fact that this is the emergency situation that we're dealing with. At least for that week, don't get into the weeds.
Well, what are you telling the math department that spends a lot of time on the whiteboard?
Same thing. Right now, you're trying to get that information out to the students for the week or so that they may not be here so that they're not behind. If you have to, in one case, I actually had someone who showed me today in the engineering school how they had actually done all of the stuff they would normally have done on the whiteboard, they made it into a PDF. They actually made a PDF of it, and they'll say, okay, I'll put this here. I can use the whiteboard functions that are here to underline key points, but I basically did my presentation here. But again, as he reiterated to me, he's doing that because this is just the worst case scenario. This is not me running my class on a day-to-day basis.
Visualizing it. Can you take a picture and put it in the whiteboard and then mark it up?
Yes, that's when you share that file, when you do the sharing of files. It actually turns that document, whether it's a PDF, an actual image, or a PowerPoint, and turns those into images. And then you'll see the whiteboard stuff on the side of it. So you basically can mark it up. Again, not great with the controls, but it can get the job done if you're trying to have like small conversations, at least for this moment. There are better ways to do it. It's just we don't have the time to implement those fully right now. Any other questions? We're checking on Facebook. Anybody?
Can students upload their own content, such as PowerPoint or a presentation?
If you allow them to share the files, as we did, yes.
Can we invite non-university guests to the sessions? For example, I have 2 guest lecture presenters scheduled for a class. Can they have full privileges to join?
Yes, you'll send them the guest link, and then when they log in, you will upgrade them to moderators.
Can you have many moderators at the same time?
You can make the whole class moderators if you want. Yeah.
Then they can share their screen.
they could share their screens, but then they can also do this. Read the last thing on the menu. Remove from session. They can start booting each other if that's what you do. So make them presenters, otherwise you might wonder why your class is getting small all of a sudden. Because somebody doesn't like somebody and they decide, well, you're going away now. So don't give them all the keys if you can help it. Anything else? Questions? Comments? Smart remarks? No?
So would you,
Yes?
would you recommend or not recommend trying a tablet?
Yes. Try anything you want. Do anything you want to. These are your classes, people. If you get stuck, we have Blackboard help. We have the learning platforms. And now DCIE has jumped on board. You need help, you call one of us. We'll do what we can. Anything else? I'm not doing that. No. I do have some cards with my office number that could blow up all day.
Many people couldn't join today. Would it be possible to schedule another session?
I'm way ahead of you. Tell me what you need, we'll get it done. Yes, sir.
It might be useful to show, you know, that quick setup where you can select your teaching style? Mm-hmm. Because many of us have different courses, and that does a nice job of breaking it up. Can you show that?
I can. Hold on. Again, I basically had planned to be.
The question was the mic.
I had planned to be.
I was asking if we can go over the teaching styles under customization. Because I noticed that it gives you labs, case studies, all kinds.
Now, okay, so I want to keep this one very succinct. No, those are just tabs that somebody made. If you want a labs tab, you have to go make it. This is just what it's going to look like. So right now, this teaching style that's what this looks like. If I go and start messing around with it, like for example, right now my entry point is the announcements. I could have it where the entry point is Blackboard Collaborate or Zoom or whatever. That means when a student logs in, that's the first thing they see. I can change the colors. Please don't change the colors. Don't do that. That's why I said what I said. It's like, I know where I am. Please don't change the colors. It's like, same thing, don't do it. Just don't do it. It's like, look, I know you guys want to just go wild. Please don't do it. Because you don't know how many times we'll get something back. Well, why was my class neon orange? Like, please don't do it. Just don't do it. In all honesty, though, there are some standards, and when the time comes that we do get online, working with the dean's office and everything, we'll set some standards that we're going to want, because again, the academic freedom, and I'll just take this time to say this because Facebook's over there. The academic freedom that you have. But there's also this thing called academic integrity. Just like I can't come in here with a bulldozer and start moving desks around, there's some things we don't want you to change. So put whatever content you want up there, but please let people be able to read what's on it.
Many of us start using these systems, we will actually be operational, but they won't be, because suddenly they're going to be
So the question was about integrity, like, okay, now all of a sudden we have all these people in the systems. I actually asked that question to the Blackboard representative days ago, and the answer was, which is good for us, we're on the cloud service, and they're using AWS, Amazon, as their backend. There have already been several schools that have ramped up to over 50,000 students, simultaneous connections with no problems. We'll be fine. So if the entirety of our student body and all of the faculty jumped on, we didn't hit 50K. And so far, the schools that have that kind of massive magnitude haven't seen a glitch. That doesn't mean that there won't be issues individually, but that's why we want to make sure everybody's taken care of. Anything else? If not, thank you.